What's up, real life traders? It's Robert Falco here, and Dan Janson and I are bringing you another edition of the Real Life Earnings Report. All right, good evening, Dan. How you doing?
What is going on? Robert Falco back again. I know some people missed the earnings reports, but we've been swamped waiting for some of the big beasts to come in, report their earnings, and here we are again. So we have three big companies that we could get the opportunity to kind of dive deeper into the earnings and see what they have in store for us. So in this video, we're going to go through Tesla, Facebook, and Apple, and let's kick it off with Tesla.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. And busy week in earnings. Again, we can't cover them all, but here's some of the big boys here. Tesla, pretty solid quarter. You know, this was the end of their fiscal year. I'm definitely impressed with their year-over-year revenue growth here at 46%. That looked pretty good to me. Their deliveries, obviously, we know the big number was 500,000. They got really close. I think they were at like 496, something like that, if you add all these up for the fiscal year. So that looks good. They got a ton of cash on hand. The one thing that I think the market is seeing that's a little bit disappointing is their automotive margin. So their margins have been really good. You can see here just steadily increasing. And then here in Q4 of 2020, we actually dropped to 24.1%. And then overall total gap gross margin dropped below 20. Again, this was on a nice little increase here up until this quarter. So I think that's a little bit of a disappointment there. And I think that's probably why they missed their actual EPS. But what were your thoughts on Tesla?
Yeah, they did have the estimated at 103 for the estimated, and they came in at 80 cents for the EPS. So that is a little bit on the weaker side, but not. I mean, it's still Tesla. They're still a growth company, and just kind of digging through the actual PR statements that they put out and stuff. I mean, the plants that they're developing, they're still in the works. They're still building those out. They still have a large. And when we were looking kind of international and stuff too, I mean, China, we were looking at definitely a huge growth potential. So there's still plenty of opportunity for Tesla, not even including any of their other businesses or anything like that. So long and strong with Tesla for me. Can it possibly dip? Yeah, I mean, it's gone up pretty decent, but for me it would be build positions and buy the dips up on them. They've pretty much increased everything else over. They beat every other estimate. So their revenues, they had 10.38 billion was their estimate. They came in at 10.74. Their cash flow has increased. Estimated was 1.04. They increased that up to 1.87 billion. So all of the numbers besides that, the margin, and we were talking about this right before the video when we were just kind of going over the reports a little bit. They were trying to hit their aggressive number at the end of the year last year. So potentially maybe discounted the cars a little bit, or just try to squeeze out to hit their final target numbers.
Yeah, trying to hit that 500,000. But like you said, free cash flow, spinning off cash flow, that's nice. They have 19 billion in cash and cash equivalents on hand. And then I think, let's see, where's their quarterly CapEx? Their quarterly CapEx was pretty large. Here it is right here. So quarterly CapEx, $3.15 billion. And a lot of that is, making sure that they're building out the Austin, Texas Gigafactory. I know they're finishing up China and then Berlin. So they're spending a lot of money. That's also going to impact their bottom line a little bit, but their top line still looks pretty good. As far as looking at the stock, obviously this thing has just been going absolutely bananas, and I think is still ahead of Facebook in market cap. I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that it is. So up there in the top 5 as far as the largest companies in the world, right? It's Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google. Yeah, Tesla's number 5. So pretty impressive there. We are down after hours, a little bit down at 864. Nothing, too crazy as far as a gap down. We've seen worse on Tesla. That's literally taking it not even to the 20 at the moment. So, what are your thoughts on trading Tesla? Where would you buy it? Do you own it? What kind of
Yeah,
trades
right.
would you
Right now,
do?
I have no positions in Tesla for me personally. Obviously, I wish I did much earlier, but you can't get them all. So I have no positions. I've been waiting on pullbacks to come in on Tesla, and it just hasn't, which does make sense. It is completely bullish, and they do have a big fan club of Elon fans out there that are just buying old dips. So anytime you get slight pullbacks, people are just pushing it up. We did come into, and it's kind of one of the reasons I haven't been able to really find a good position to get into. I've been waiting for some kind of pullback. 2 days ago was all time highs again. It hit 940
Mm-hmm.
cents. For me to buy here, if I had a long term view, long term basis, yeah, I could buy here, and then if it dips down, I'd add reduce. So that's possible. I'm waiting for some kind of dip to come in, and I don't know if it's directly going to be driven by Tesla or some kind of market pullback, but every company has a pullback at some point. And if that comes in, then I'm going to start scaling in relatively heavily to Tesla. So for me personally, I just don't want to buy things. It's just not my style buying things at all time highs. I'd much rather try to get things on a bit of a discount. So for me, I'm holding off here until we see something. If it goes without me, Tesla will just continue to go without me. Do you own any Tesla yourself, or?
I don't own any Tesla outside of the indices right now, so I'm also not buying up here. If you're already in, I think you can obviously still hold it, and there are some advanced option hedging strategies that you can use, or whether that's even just selling calls or doing callers or anything like that. But I do think the dip is viable. I would love to see it pull back to the 50, and this high right here, that was from that S&P 500 inclusion day. And then eventually, Tesla will pull back to the 100, wherever that is. It could be here, it could be up here, it could be all the way up here by the time it does it. But eventually, it will pull back to the 100, and I think that would be a really great place to add because it hasn't been there since April of 2020, which now it's getting closer to a year away. So yeah, I agree. I think that's still bullish on Tesla, but I'm not buying literally 2 days off of the all-time high.
Yeah, it's just hard to swallow the pill of you taking that purchase right off the all time highs and buying everybody else's shares up there. So yeah, I agree. Wait for the pullback for me, and let's go from there.
Yeah, let's head over to Facebook. So Zuckerberg also, I know social media been under a lot of heat, a lot of pressure lately, but Facebook delivered a pretty solid quarter. If you just look at the numbers, this is also their fiscal year ending. I like when companies end their fiscal year at the end of the year rather than going through into different years. So, 21% year over year increase in total revenue. 22% total revenue, 21% on just advertising. So they are growing their others. You can see right here 72%, but it's still so much lower than their actual advertising revenue. Their costs were definitely up. So that's also growing. And you can see just quarter over quarter growing relatively substantially. So they do have some increased costs out there. But I still think it was a pretty good quarter on Facebook.
Yeah, they beat Facebook has beat pretty much all expectations of all the estimates. So on EPS, they estimated was 3.22. They came in at 3.88. Estimated revenue, they were estimated at 26.41 billion. They came in at 28.07. Active users have increased. Active users did increase, but very slightly. And then monthly active users, they were expecting 2.76, and they came in at 2.8. So not huge beats by any stretch. They just inched along and took it out, but they did beat across every category. So according to the earnings, they look strong. I'm interested in the quarter that's coming up to see kind of how that does, just for a political sense. I know they did have a turbulent fourth quarter. However, I mean, you're seeing more active users, you're seeing things, but we also just got off of a pretty heated campaign all the way up to inauguration day. So lots of comments flying back and forth and user activity and engagements. Now that that's all done, I'm curious to see where Facebook goes in the future. It's still a strong company. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. And they do make just a ton of money with the advertising. The amount of information that they keep on everybody is astonishing. So they could use that to pinpoint very targeted ads, things like that. So yeah, I still like Facebook. I would not personally probably be buying it up here as well. And aftermarket, we did see a little bit of a sell-off on this one as well. Even though it beat across the board, I think you're getting some profit targets. It just ran to just solidly high numbers, not all-time highs like in Tesla, but I'd still be waiting for a little bit more pullback if I did want to get into Tesla.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed.
I'm sorry, Facebook.
Yeah, with Facebook, I gotcha. Is that their business is showing signs of like some more mature companies, which Facebook's not new; it's been around a long time. But you can see their incremental share, their share repurchase plan, up to an additional 25 billion. So they're buying back lots of shares. And then I know you pointed this out the last time we talked about Facebook, but they continue to talk about the headwinds of some of the changes on Apple and with iOS and not being able to target ads as effectively or as aggressively, I guess you would say. So they do point that out. Facebook did have this huge pullback just a week ago to the 200. I mean, that was pretty much one of the easiest, like buy some shares there or, sell puts like anywhere down here, even before earnings. And then you're able to buy those things back. But we did trade, interestingly enough, right into the bottom of this trend line pretty much. And now we are having a little bit of a pullback. So I do think Facebook is buyable, but I would like to see it back down around this 250 area, or it still hasn't filled this gap down near 230, 235. If this gap does fill, I would probably buy the heck out of it down in this area. Just me personally.
Yeah, but by the gap fills makes tons of sense, and I think at that level, and again, it's not if you're buying as it drops. So if you're buying into the 200, or if you're buying into that gap fill, even if you've bought previously higher, you could reduce your price. It's a relatively safe play. It's not going to zero. Facebook, again, this quarter coming up, the quarter that we're currently in, I'm excited to see pretty much what the numbers are there, because now we're out of Facebook goes wild around political events. So now that the fact that most of that's settled down, I'm curious to see how many people are still on it, or if people are mainly using other platforms or communicating other ways and sharing photos through other ways. Although Instagram is still huge for them. So.
Yep. All right. Well, last but definitely not least, we're gonna flip over to Big Daddy Apple. Just absolutely. I know there's a lot of there was a lot of hype about this quarter because it was expected that they were going to top $100 billion in revenue. That's for the quarter, everyone listening and watching. That's not for the year. That's for the quarter. 111 billion. That's up 21% year over year. Diluted quarterly earnings up 35% of $1.68. Just absolutely astounding. What were your thoughts on Apple here?
Bullish, amazing quarter. $100 billion in one quarter, incredible. Yeah, they crushed it in every. They've had double-digit growth in every aspect of every product that they have. Just incredibly bullish on the report. Again, beat every estimate across the board. So they were expected, as far as EPS, to $1.42. They hit $1.68. Revenue, they were estimated at 103.12 billion. They came in at 111.44 billion. In terms of the iPhone revenue alone, their estimate was 60.3 billion. They came in at 65.6 billion, and they again, strong company. They do have a dividend. The dividend is not huge, but there is still a dividend in there. So long term, perfect. Uh, Apple not going anywhere. Everybody knows what they do. They most likely have some kind of Apple product in their house. As far as the earnings specifically, yeah, I mean, there's no other way to say that they crushed their earnings more than I could possibly say right here, right now. So strong. It's incredible.
Yeah, just amazing, amazing numbers. I know the presentation, like their consolidated financial statement, doesn't look like super fancy, but these numbers are just absolutely astonishing. You can see gross margin. I mean, $44 billion right there. The other thing that I thought was pretty interesting, I know a lot of people talk like, oh, Apple's not innovating, yada, yada, yada. We just saw like Tesla, what was it, 3.5 billion in CapEx or whatever it was. R&D over at Apple just last quarter, again, this is 3 months, they spent 5.1 billion. So they're spending money out there from an R&D standpoint. So I think they still have some innovation coming, although it might not be like as leapfrog as like the original iPhone or anything like that. And specifically, the growth in China was pretty solid there. I mean, that's, I think, about 40% or so, maybe high 30s if I just do math off the top of my head. But yeah, all the regions growing in here. Obviously, the Americas is the big one, but all the regions growing. I mean, look at iPhone, Mac, iPad, heck, wearables, 12.9. Again, these are billions. Everybody, services. That was what, like a 24% growth in services. So just absolutely crazy. Huge results from Apple. We are gapping down slightly. Again, this was like right up near all-time highs pretty much going into this report. So I think it was a little bit of a buy the rumor, sell the news. So what are your thoughts on Apple as far as, do you own it? Where would you want to own more of it? Do you want to sell it? What are your thoughts on it?
I do own Apple. I'll continue to own Apple, and I'll continue to buy more Apple. At these levels, yes, we're at all-time highs. I think we're getting a little bit of a pullback on Apple, specifically just because, again, I mean, people were estimating that they were going to do $100 billion for the quarter, and they did even beat that number by a little bit. But I think the run up into earnings had a lot to do with the expectations that they were going to be pretty much right where they were, even though they did beat it a little bit. So I think you're seeing some profit taking. Pretty much what I'm doing on this one is I'm going to set some kind of a pyramid. So first level for me is actually very soon, and I think we can get a little bit further of a dip, but just to be in it a little bit more exposure to it is 136.20 for me, and then I have a couple levels, just like key support zones. If I get triggered, but I have no problem pyramiding into this. If you pull up the chart, just a longer term basis, it's bullish. So this is definitely a company. Again, I know what they do. I know how they make money. I know that they make tons of money, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. So as this pulls back, I'm just going to continue to pyramid into this one, and then just sit tight, and Apple will be higher.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm an owner of Apple individual shares, and obviously through indices and ETFs and things like that. I don't want to add all the way up here. So a little bit of a pullback. Like you said, they had about a 12% run up into earnings, which is quite a lot. But I do think a small pyramid, like I drew a little bit earlier, obviously off these longer term moving averages, selling puts down in anywhere between 110 to 100. And I just drew a quick Fibonacci retracement. I didn't like line up the numbers perfect, but basically from this low during the Corona crash to the high of a couple days ago. And look at where this 50% retrace is. So this 50% retrace down here in this gap. Oh man, I mean, I would back up the truck and just load the boat on Apple down there. So that would be a target to where, like, whatever my final position size, and maybe I do allow myself to go over normal position size on Apple, is one that's in my long-term plan. So if we make it down there and this gap over here does ever fill, I will be loading. I'll be loading the boat with as much Apple as I can personally buy, and obviously can hedge and do all that kind of stuff. But I think that's kind of an interesting little Fibonacci. Again, they crushed earnings, so the likelihood that's going to happen anytime soon probably not there unless we have an overall market pullback, which we might be getting a little bit of. We saw a little bit of a chink in the armor out there today, but overall, some great earnings from the big boys and girls, Tesla, Facebook, and Apple. So
Yeah, the interesting thing is they were all relatively bullish earnings, and they're all giving some kind of, at least initially after hours, they're all down on the earnings. So it's giving you some opportunities to try to set some kind of plays on them. And again, if all of them had pretty massive runs, Facebook was at a little bit of a higher point than obviously Apple and Tesla was, but they are definitely all giving some kind of a little bit of a pullback at least. And the further they pull back, just the more I look to add and not even sweat it when I go to sleep. It's Apple, it's Tesla, and then Facebook is the one that I'd be not too iffy at. Just at the prices, I would like a little bit more of a pullback to really see how that one works out.
all right, sounds good to me. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for checking out another earnings report. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check us out over at Real Life Trading.